In the summer of 1992, the country of the Philippines was pushed to the brink of a national crisis. Anti-government riots broke out. Military trucks lined the streets of Manila. Hand grenades were thrown at delivery vans. But this wasn't a political revolution. It wasn't a military coup. The target of the public's fury was a soft drink company. It all centered around a seemingly innocent 3-digit number printed on the inside of a bottle cap. 349. This is the story of how an innocent marketing campaign accidentally triggered a multi-million-dollar economic nightmare and turned a global superpower of retail into the most hated company in Southeast Asia. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly how 3 digits nearly bankrupted one of the largest corporations on earth. To understand how this disaster unfolded, we have to rewind to the brutal corporate landscape of the early 1990s. In the Philippines, Coca-Cola was the undisputed king. It commanded a massive 75% of the soft drink market. Pepsi was trailing far behind, holding on to just 15%. For a company as ambitious as PepsiCo, that gap wasn't just embarrassing, it was existential. So, Pepsi's marketing team made a bold move, a campaign they called Number Fever. The premise was simple, almost too simple. Buy a bottle of Pepsi. Check the number printed under the cap. At the end of the campaign, Pepsi would announce a winning number on live television. Match it, and you'd win a life-changing amount of cash. The grand prize? 1 million Philippine pesos. To put that number in perspective, that was roughly 61 times the average annual salary in the country at the time. This wasn't a small treat. This was the kind of money that could buy a house, start a business, or change a family's future overnight. The public response was explosive. Pepsi consumption in the Philippines skyrocketed by 40% almost immediately. Corner stores sold out. Families bought cases at a time. Kids ran errands specifically to check bottle caps. For the first time in years, Pepsi wasn't just competing with Coca-Cola, it was winning. The strategy was working. In fact, it was working too well, and that success was about to become the exact thing that nearly destroyed the company. On May 25, 1992, millions of Filipino citizens gathered around their television sets for the nightly drawing. This was appointment viewing. Entire neighborhoods crowded around single TVs. Families held their bottle caps like lottery tickets, because in a very real sense, that's exactly what they were. The winning number was drawn, 349. Instantly, the country erupted. Screams of joy echoed through neighborhoods. People danced in the streets. Strangers hugged each other. Winners held their caps in the air like trophies, already planning what they'd do with 1 million pesos. But as the hours passed, a horrifying reality began to dawn. Not on the public, but on Pepsi executives sitting in their Manila headquarters. Due to a catastrophic computer error at the manufacturing plant, the number 349 hadn't been printed once. It hadn't been printed a handful of times. It had been printed on roughly 800,000 bottle caps. Let that sink in. Pepsi had budgeted around $2 million for this entire promotion. But if they honored every single winning cap, the total payout would exceed $32 billion, an amount that would have completely liquidated the entire global PepsiCo corporation, not just its Philippine division. This wasn't a rounding error. This was an extinction-level mistake. Faced with a choice between honoring a promise that would bankrupt the company or breaking that promise to 800,000 furious citizens, Pepsi's leadership made their decision. They refused to pay, and that decision changed everything that came next. The public reaction was immediate, and it was violent. People who had spent the night celebrating, who had told their families they were about to become millionaires, were suddenly told it had all been a mistake, a printing error. Not their fault, not exactly Pepsi's fault either, but somehow it was Pepsi who now owed them an explanation. Deceived and enraged, ordinary citizens organized into a resistance movement, calling itself the 349 Alliance. What started as peaceful protest rapidly spiraled into chaos. Pepsi delivery trucks were ambushed in the streets and set on fire. By the end of the crisis, Over 30 corporate vehicles had been destroyed. Hand grenades were thrown at Pepsi bottling plants, resulting in tragic casualties. Executives could no longer move around the country safely without armored vehicles and private security teams. In an attempt to calm the situation, Pepsi offered a $20 goodwill payment to anyone holding a 349 cap. It was meant as a peace offering. Instead, it was seen as an insult. A company that had promised life-changing money now offering pocket change instead. The backlash only intensified. Over 10,000 civil and criminal lawsuits flooded the Philippine court system, effectively paralyzing Pepsi's local operations for the next decade. What began as a clever marketing campaign to steal market share from Coca-Cola had become one of the most infamous corporate crises in modern history. It took years of legal battles before the Philippine Supreme Court finally issued its ruling. Pepsi was not legally liable for the printing error. Technically, the company was free from the $32 billion debt that had loomed over it since that night in May of 1992. But winning in court and winning in the public eye are two very different things. By the time the legal dust settled, the damage to Pepsi's brand in the Philippines was already permanent. Market share that had briefly surged now collapsed. The company spent hundreds of millions of dollars on legal fees and reputation repair, money that, in some ways, cost them more than the original $32 billion nightmare ever could have. And that's really the core lesson buried inside this entire disaster. The $32 billion number was never the true risk. The real risk was breaking a promise made to millions of people, all at once. Consumer trust is the most fragile asset a corporation owns. Once you break the math behind your own promises, even by accident, the market doesn't just adjust. Sometimes it corrects itself with devastating, uncontrollable force. If you want to explore more hidden stories where corporate ambition collided head-on with economic chaos, hit that subscribe button. We break down a new economic mystery every week here on Economy Land. See you in the next case study.